Aloha, this is Tracy, and this is not your typical gaming video. I'm not going to have a whole lot of practical gameplay footage to show you. I'm not going to give you tips on how to farm or what gear to equip. Nothing I have to say is going to make you better at playing the game. This is a video where I tell you a bunch of stuff you probably didn't know, and then you decide how to use that information. Do you change the way you farm? Do you change what you expect based on that knowledge? Okay, this is not a defense of the game. Borderlands 3 has its issues, and some of those involve drop rates and spawn rates. Okay, this is an explanation of how probability and drop rates actually work, and how our understanding of those things, or rather lack thereof, is often itself a major source of farming frustration. Okay, most of us think that if the drop rate for a particular item from a particular boss is, say, 10%, that's 1 chance in 10, then that means that if I defeat that boss 10 times, I will get the desired item on one of those 10 attempts, and that is wrong. Okay, that sometimes happens, but that is not how probability works. That is not how the game works. The game does not keep track of how many times we farm a particular enemy and then reward us after a certain number of attempts. The game does not go, oh look, she just farmed this guy 9 times and got nothing. On the next try, I'll drop the legendary. Okay. All the game knows is that when we defeat the enemy, run this random number generator script, and if the results fall within a certain range, drop the item. Okay, some loopholes are more complex than that, but that's basically how it works. Okay, every attempt, every time you defeat that boss is a separate event, unconnected to any previous attempts. The odds of getting that item to drop are 1 in 10, 10% the first time, the 10th time, the 100th time, whenever. Okay, probability has no memory, and neither does the game. Okay, streaks of what we call good and bad luck are actually normal. Going more than 10 tries while a drop, when the drop rate is 10%, sometimes 20, 30, 40 times without it, is normal. Occasionally getting 2 or 3 of the item in just a few attempts is also normal. Okay, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. Now in the long run, the percentage of drops will start to equal the actual probability. You may farm a boss 10 times and get nothing, but you may also get 2 or 3 of the item in that same amount of time. Over 100 tries, you may get as little as 4 or 5 drops, or as many as 15, 16, or 17. Okay, over the course of 1,000 runs, the item may drop 80 or 90 times, or over 120, and anywhere in between. Over the long run, things even out. It's just that the long run is often longer than we imagine, and we all notice in the short run. All we notice in the short run is the streaks. Okay, now to illustrate this, I'm going to show you 2 examples. One involves coin toss, and the other one involves a 6-sided die. 2 fairly common items. Okay, most people are familiar with. Now, first, in the case of the coin, I flipped this nickel 100 times and recorded the results as I went. Now, a nickel has only 2 sides. The probability of heads is 50%. The probability of tails is 50%. 1 chance in 2. Okay. First thing to notice here is that while there were plenty of instances where I got a head followed by a tail, then a head, and so on, the number of streaks of 2 or more of the same result in a row were just as common, maybe more so. Runs of 2, 3, or 4 were common, and in one instance, I got 7 tails in a row. Is that weird? Is 7 in a row unusual? Do 7 tails in a row mean there's something wrong with the nickel or with probability? No. Each flip is a separate event. The nickel does not know the previous result was tails, much less the previous 6. Probability has no memory. Okay. What about viewed in isolation? If I had tossed the coin only 7 times and they all came up tails, would that freak you out? Probably. Freak me out. But as much as it might freak us out, does that signify that something is not right? Is that any different from 7 tails in a row out of 100 flips? No. Okay. Now most of us instinctively think 50-50 means head, tail, etc., even if we know better, but streaks are the norm. And remember when I said things even out over the long run? Guess how many of the 100 ended up as heads and how many were tails? 50-50. Okay, I actually found that to be the oddest thing about this experiment, because I expected 40 something of one and 50 something of the other. I got exactly 50-50. I got lucky. Okay, but that's a super simple example. I'm not aware of any game situation with 50-50 odds. So let me show you one more that actually exemplifies what happens in the game. In this case, the 6-sided die. Okay, 6 numbers. The odds of rolling any one number are 1 in 6, or 16.67%. I decided that I was going to roll the die, record the result, repeat, just like the nickel. Okay. Before I started, however, I picked one number to be my target, my desired result. The number that, if rolled, would mean success, that in-game would give me that legendary item. And that number, picked randomly, was 5. Okay. So here's how I record the results. Over on the left is a roll for each number. Here's the desired 5. Across the top is each roll from 1 to 50. Every time I roll the die, I know the result and put a 1 in the corresponding column. So I started rolling. Okay, I rolled it 50 times, recorded the results. Then I did another 50, then another. I was going to do a few hundred, but I ended up doing 1,000. Okay, it took about 6 minutes to roll and record 50 results, about 2 hours total effort. Before I explain the results, I want to point out how this actually roughly mirrors how I farm. I don't normally spend hours or days farming for one particular item. My normal limit is around 50. I will tell myself I will do 50 or 60 runs on this boss, hoping for this particular item, and if I don't get it, fine. I'll go do something else. I'll come back and farm that guy tomorrow, maybe. Okay, so I'm going to periodically refer to these groups of 50 as farming sessions or days. So with that in mind, here are the results. Far left column, the session or day or group of 50. Okay, so 1 through 20. 20 times 50 equals 1,000. Okay. Second column, number of times I rolled a 5 in each group of 50. Third column, this is the second column divided by 50 and expressed as a percentage. This is the observed drop rate for that group of 50 rolls. Okay, first 2 sets of 50 I rolled a 5 each, 5 times each. Okay, 5 is 10% of 50, so 7 is 14% of 50, and so on. Okay, I colored these red, white, and green. Red means the result is below the actual probability of 16.67%. Green means it's above that probability. And white means it's roughly equivalent to the actual probability of 16.67%. I say roughly because 6 does not go into 50 evenly. 50 divided by 6 equals 8.5, and I can't roll something 8.5 times. I can roll it 8 times, or I can roll it 9. Okay, so any total of 8 or 9 rolls in a group of 50, any observed percentage of 16 or 18%, as effectively equal to the actual probability of 16.67%. Okay, so fourth column, this is the longest losing streak. Out of each set of 50 rolls, this is the longest interval I went without rolling a 5. This is the where's my frickin' legendary number. Okay. Fifth column lists anytime I got more than 1 5 in a row. Okay, 0 means it didn't happen. 2 means I got 2 5s in a row. If it happened more than once in that 50, I recorded it each time. Okay, so this is the yes, life is freaking awesome column. Okay, the big takeaway from this is that I had good sessions and bad sessions. Okay, good days and bad days, just like the game. I had 6 days when actual and observed probability were about equal. I also had 5 days where the RNG really liked me. And I had 9 sessions where the RNG really didn't like me. Okay, if you look at the losing streak column, very first session I went 24 runs in a row without seeing the 5. Okay, on the other hand, look at session 12. Only 5 out of 50, 10% drop rate. RNG didn't like me, and yet I also rolled 2 5s in a row in the same session. Am I getting through here? Are you understanding that probability has no memory and everybody has good days and bad days? Am I beating a dead horse? Let me beat it a little bit more. Okay, here are the results in graph form. Okay, total rolls across the bottom, percentage out of 50 up on the right side. The red dotted line up on the left side. The red dotted line is 6.67%. The gray band is there because you can't roll 8.5 times. So good days are above, bad days are below. RNG loves me, RNG hates me. Okay. One more thing. Remember I said things even out over time. Let's look at a few more columns. Okay, this here is column 5, the total number of rows added up as we go. So 50, then 100, then 150, etc. Column 6, this is the total number of 5 rolled as we went. So 5 for the first 50, 10 out of 100, 17 out of 150, etc. Okay. Column 7, this is the column 6 divided by column 5. Total number of 5s rolled up to that point divided by the total number of rolls, expressed as that percentage. This is the drop rate for all sessions combined up to that point. Okay, so notice that it starts well below 16.67, down around 10%, but slowly works its way up. Okay, had a setback here where my luck turned bad and it dropped back down a bit, then it started creeping back up, up, bingo, 17%, which is above 16.67. Okay, dropped a bit below here, but from this point on, it will just fluctuate above and below 16.67% while getting closer and closer to it. Here's what it looks like in graph form. Things even out, okay, over time. So probability has no memory. Streaks happen. Things even out over the long run. Okay. One other thing I want to point out about probability, and let me illustrate it with the ion cannon. The ion cannon is a Handsome Jack DLC dedicated drop from the Fabricator Mark II. And its drop rate is 100%. Every time you defeat that boss, you get an ion cannon, which is awesome. But here's the thing. Very few of us want just an ion cannon. We want a shock one, okay? Or one with the highest damage rating, or an annexed one with the 2x multiplier, or one with a very specific anointment. If it's not already obvious what I'm getting at here, anytime we put additional specific requirements on a drop, we lower the drop rate. Okay? We lower the probability of getting that item. We want a shock cannon. Well, ion cannons come in all 5 elements and not on a mellow. That's 6 possible variants. Remember the 6-sided die? Well, instead of 100% probability is now 16.67. Okay. Any specific part we want cuts that chance in half, at least in half, in fact, sometimes more. Okay. Anointments. There are, to my knowledge, at least 22 different universal weapon anointments and 6 to 8 weapon anointments specific to each class. That doesn't include shields and grenades. It doesn't include terror anointments. So let's just call it 30. Okay. Even if we're hoping for, say, 1 of 3 different anointments out of those 30 and not just one specific one, that still lowers the odds by a factor of 10. All I'm saying here is be aware of what it is you want and the odds of getting it, even if the drop rate for a non-specific version of the item is 100%. Okay, and that's it. That's what I mean in the title by understanding probability and our expectations. Again, not a defense of the game and its actual issues. Knowing how all this works does not mean drop rates are as they should be. How many times you should have to farm something before that sought-after item drops is very subjective. Okay, if a 10% rate means you can go 40 or more times without it dropping, which I've demonstrated, and that does not include specific parts, elements, or anointments, maybe the drop rate should be 30%. I don't know. Okay, this is the thing Gearbox has to figure out, and I sympathize with them on this point, especially since, as I said in the beginning, most gamers don't understand how probability works. But now you do, in fact, have a basic understanding of how that part of the game works and how what you want can affect that. And now that you understand that, will you still get frustrated? Oh, hell yeah. Okay, I know this stuff and I still get pissed off. But I also understand that I'm at least 51% responsible for being pissed off. Okay, I told you my farming routine. Some people are willing to put in hours or days farming and some less. What you do with this info is up to you. Now you will note that except for the ion cannon example, I did not mention any actual in-game drop rates. I showed you the nickel and the die example, and I talked about a hypothetical 10% drop rate. Now I am planning a part 2 of this video where I talk specifically about actual game drop rates, how to determine drop rates from testing, which many people are already doing. Okay, I'm going to talk about sample size, margin of error, other things to keep in mind when doing that kind of testing and looking at the results. For now, though, I've said what I wanted to say and hopefully helped some people. Now, I understand that a lot of what I have said may not be what people want to hear, and if that's the case, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm just trying to educate and help. I can't change the way probability works, and I can't change the way the game works, at least not by myself. But I firmly believe that the more we know about this stuff, the better equipped we are to decide what we want to do and to better enjoy the experience. And the better equipped we are to voice our concerns to Gearbox and get them to effect change. If I have gotten through to just one person and made their gameplay more enjoyable, or at least less frustrating, I've done my job. So please, please, please leave me some comments if you got them. Feedback, preferably constructive, is always appreciated. Like or don't like the video, whatever you decide to do or not do, I thank you for listening.